Hello, I'm at Avebury Henge, a World Heritage Site, and I love coming here. In fact, I've always been drawn to standing stones and stone circles and the energy at long barrows and sacred sites, and always feel an urge to honour the ancestors and feel a real definite sense of peace, tranquility. I often feel energised when I'm at these great stones, feeling the energy within them. And I wanted to explore a bit more about earth energy, ley lines, why water is found at a lot of these sacred sites, what the ancient ones were doing, building, how they even got them here. The expert in this is Maria Wheatley. She's based in Wiltshire and she has spent the past 30 years travelling the world to Neolithic sites. She's done so many studies. She's an archaeologist. She's a second generation Master Dowser. So she's a real expert in her field. So I was honoured that she spent time taking me around Avebury today and sharing her knowledge. So I hope you enjoy the film. Please remember to subscribe to my channel and to like and share with your community. I really hope you enjoy this, and it encourages you to take your families out to these wonderful sites and see them as healing centres.
We're in the largest stone circle in the world. It has a diameter of over 1,000 feet. You can fit 10 Stonehenges into Avebury. An ancient site is many things. It's like a diamond, it's multifaceted. It can have solar alignments, lunar alignments, celestial alignments, and also really ground in the earth energies and the lays that course through the land. The ancients were looking for enclosures, making something sacred on the inside and leaving the profane on the outside. Josh Pollard and Mark Gillens, they're the Avebury archaeologist and expert. They use luminosity tests, and that's looking down below the ground to see the last time daylight hit it. And they got a date from that, and that was around about 3,200 BC to 3,100 BC. I'm a second generation Master Dowser, following in the footsteps of my late father, who was a pioneer of all things dowsing, and my family inherited the unpublished surveys of yet another Master Dowser called Gaia Underwood. So he was dowsing in the 1930s and 40s, so I come with a huge heritage. So I'm very much into the dowsing side of it, the earth energies. But I have studied with Bob Clark of Wessex Archaeology, the University of Bath, and Lisa Brown at Oxford University as well, the Neolithic and Bronze Age eras. So I like to ground the two, the left brain and the right brain. Also, I've invited scientists to join me for experiments at Avebury and Rollright to see what were the ancients up to. So my passion has been to explore the mysteries of the ancient world, long lost civilizations and beautiful monuments that still stand here today. Some lays are just topographical. They have no energy and they just link site after site after site. Some lays do have energy and they're also aligned to an astronomical event. So for example, at Avebury, you have the very famous St. Michael ley line discovered by John Michell in the 1960s. Avebury is at the exact centre of that ley. But the line points to the rising sun at Beltane and the setting sun at Samhain or Halloween on the 31st of October. So that's got an astronomical alignment associated with it. They're the really powerful lays. Some lays are very short. They could just be 1, 2, 3 miles long. Others encircle the world. There have been many famous people that have been dowsers. For example, Einstein, a dowser. Sir Isaac Newton, a dowser. Michelangelo. These are people that were really exploring a science, because that's what dowsing is. It's an ancient science and wisdom that we can tap in today, just like the famous people before us. Earth energies played a major role in the placement of standing stones. If you imagine that an acupuncturist can put a needle into a meridian line, that happens at places like Avebury. You tap into the earth energy on very powerful earth currents, earth voltages, ley lines, put the standing stone into that earth energy, and the stone will behave in a particular manner and start to absorb the earth energy and then transmit it. Below ground, you have two energy bands flowing through the ground because the stone is rooted into the chalk bedrock, and you have 5 above on a high, tall megalith like this. And I'm going to show you how powerful these energy bands are, which I've likened to chakras for years because there's 7 of them. So we're going to start at ground level, and we're going to get the top of one of the energy bands, and it will make my rod go into found. There we are. I'm going to carry on up the face of the stone, and we're going to get the next bottom part of the energy band there. Now let's move the rod up. Whoa, we've got the energy band. That's the width of it there. Now we can go up and get the bottom of the third energy band there, and then we're going to get the top of it further on up here, about there. People feel the energy if they place their hands like this. So the anecdotal evidence is that it changes our consciousness. It can calm us down. And also people feel an electrical effect, a piezoelectrical effect that's been emitted by the stones as well. And when we look to the antiquarian reports, and even before that, to the 12th century, Geoffrey of Monmouth said about Stonehenge, there is no stone at Stonehenge that doesn't have healing properties. They're silicon-based and form of sandstone called sarsen that has, just like a crystal, a lattice on the inside, and it's believed that lattice can absorb earth energy and transmit it in a particular manner. Also, some of the stones here contain iron. They're rich in that as well, which is a very good conductor of energy. So I think they were purposely selective for their conductive properties. You've got a huge aquifer, like a lake, beneath the ground that generates a surface energy pattern known to water diviners as a geospiral energy pattern. And that's because the aquifer is under sustained pressure. And maybe the ley lines and the grid lines, those linear lines that flow across the earth, could direct this energy. Could it be, for example, that one site is good production of energy and then it releases it along the line to another place? Because when you look at somewhere like ancient Egypt, it is connected to places like Stonehenge. There's an energy interaction, and maybe that's free energy. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to douse a geospiral pattern, of which there are 7. And I've got one reaction, one coil, second coil. It's the geospiral energy, the Hertzian frequency, is bringing your brain into the alpha mode, which is calm and relaxed. How I see it is this type of water, the yin water, is born within the womb of Gaia, giving off a healing frequency. And one more. A lot of people believe that the goddess principle, the female, the divine feminine, can manifest above these spiral patterns. So the yin water is good to be around. The yang water, that's the water that's groundwater, isn't. And that gives off to what's called geopathic stress. We are made up of water as well. So we mirror Gaia. We are more fluidic than we are solid. And that's the same for Gaia. She has more inner waters than she does surface land mass. You can take away the stones, as we can see in this sector. A lot of the stones have gone for building material, but the energies prevail. So this face would have been polished sarsen, which is so smooth to the touch. Here we have the mouth area. Just a little bit higher, we have the nose, and then the eye towards the top. So it's watching everybody that comes into this sector. So I would have think back in the day, 4,500 years ago, this would have been gleaming with the daylight and probably the moonlight as well. We're at the cove stones, the central feature of the northern inner circle, and they are spectacular. This one has the eye of the goddess. So this is the feminine sector of Avebury because it's dedicated to the moon. Every 18.61 years, moon moves slightly and aligned to the very large cove stone, creating the most spectacular lunar display. And it's happening quite soon, in a couple of years' time. That's the heaviest megalith in the British Isles. It weighs well over 100 tons.
So, Maria, how on earth did they put this in place? It's massive.
I know theories abound on how you move and put stones up, but I have one, and it is just a theory. When I measured the frequency of earth currents, which are always associated to ancient sites, I noticed it was around 25 hertz. Now, if ancient man, through sound, could manipulate that earth current frequency to 25 kilohertz, 25 kilohertz is the frequency of levitation. And maybe that earth current could slightly make the stone much lighter and more movable. It leans right the way in like this, and it points to that stone over there, showing you the strongest earth current in the area. As she departs company from the Michael current at the cove stones, the female earth currents are calming, they're nurturing. The width of this stone is showing you the Mary current. So we could say that female earth energy imbues this stone. Very powerful lay, coursing from the east to the west. The church tower at West Overton is also on the lake. We're at the West Kennet Long Barrow, which is a Neolithic monument, and that means it's about 5,500 years old and predates the stone circle building phase at Avebury by 1,000 years. We've got some swallows here today. It's quite sweet. They've got a nest at the far end, which is the western chamber. You have a vortex that will cause a dowsing rod to spin wildly. Here, the vortex is probably negative ions coming out of the ground.
It's sort of like a feeling for me.
Some people feel it's tingles, other people feel it as ripples. It's often been described as a ripple effect. Negative ions make us feel good. So in past times, imagine being here at the equinox when all of this lights up and becomes illuminated with the sun. Now this stone is said to be the face of the ancestor. Here we've got an eye and a nose coming down, a sloping skull. Here's the ear. It's sited above some very harmonic earth energies that are gentle spirals. Imagine pools of water beneath the chambers inside, releasing this healing energy. That's what you've got. It's interesting to note as well that Steve Marshall points out in his work that the chambers are musical resonance to the perfect fourth, 4/3 mathematically speaking, bringing earth energy that's healing into harmony with sound, music and resonance. What a healing modality, what a way to live in harmony with the earth. But then eventually the people were placed here, maybe as guardians.
And in Neolithic times, they really honoured the dead.
They interacted and honoured the dead. What I discovered about the Neolithic people at Stonehenge and here at West Kennet, they had long skulls, meaning their skull was more extended this way. Then, in the Bronze Age, around 2500 BC, the beaker culture were coming from Europe and entering the British Isles, and they had round skulls. We're at Silbury Hill now, which is not that far from the West Kennet Long Barrow and about 1.5 miles away from Avebury Henge. And this is a really good description of how it was constructed. The ancients used massive chalk block in like a 50p piece, and then eventually they smoothed it off with more infill of chalk. And they're showing you this at the bottom. And there was a spiral pathway going around the monument 7 times, and beneath Silbury Hill you have a 7-coiled geospiral, a massive aquifer. Silbury Hill was surrounded by a moat of water. There's 81 springs that will feed Silbury Hill. So this is a point where the earth, feminine element, meets water, a feminine element. And one of my favourite lays goes through Silbury Hill, Stonehenge, Avebury and Winterbourne Bassett Stone Circle, to name just a few sites. I call it the Duke Line, and Silbury represents Earth. They were using Earth's mean distance to the planets in the sky and laying it down on the Earth below. So that's a ley line that is a planisphere. But what was it used for? Why create the largest man-made mound in Northwest Europe? One interpretation could be that it interacts with the electrostatic field. We did some measurements alongside a retired engineer at a control area and at the summit of Silbury Hill, and it was staggering, the difference. It was 1,000 times greater at the top. Could it be that our ancient ancestors were advanced physicists and somehow that they could make energy out of this electrostatic field?
How do these sacred sites help us?
I think they activate the soul. Something within us so deep that somehow comes to the surface when we interact with ancient sites. Pythagoras, Plato, they all spoke about the soul, and the ancient Druids alike. And I think some of the sites can put us in touch with our soul's divine purpose. And that is soul alchemy at its most treasured.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.